This is the perfect family scene when Mom, Dad, and Junior all want to hear the same radio program.
It's important, actually, that the interviewer does homework and gets going instead of kind of dulled, you know.
You probably get the best interview, darling.
I have a personal relationship with my fans where I don't mess around.
You know what I mean? You're right, you know, music should be a fucking uplifting thing.
I delivered the message. Now what?
It's time for Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider.
Got the message?
Welcome back to our second part of the show. Vic's joining us from Alpha Entertainment. And speaking of entertainment, let's talk about MCM Entertainment live at the Chapel. Now, can you explain a little bit more about live at the Chapel for people outside of Australia?
Sure. Live at the Chapel was a concept, a TV concept, and it was actually developed quite a few years before I was brought on board with that one. But essentially, there's a venue in Melbourne, and it's called Chapel on Chapel, and it's this beautiful old bluestone building. Obviously, it used to be a chapel. The acoustics are stunning. You know, the inside of it is beautiful. And the guys that were running or behind the concept for Live at the Chapel found this venue and thought, how amazing to film live performances from artists in such an environment. So when I went to MCM, so other things I was doing, they really wanted to breathe new life into that and get it back on air. So we spent a lot of time talking to the labels. We needed to get sort of sponsors on board. Vodafone came on board as a sponsor. We had to secure international artists, you know, and you would deal with the labels and, you know, the promoters. And when a band was coming into the country to tour, we would try and negotiate ahead of time, you know, for them to either schedule in their on-ground time or bring them in a day earlier to do a chapel performance. You know, tickets were given away through various media outlets. There was usually only about 200 people in the environment. A film crew, a TV crew came in. They would film the show. And, you know, there were bean bags on the floor. There were beautiful candles everywhere. There was red carpet. The bands loved it. They would walk into the room and go, oh, my God. We encouraged the artists to do sets differently, like stripped back, acoustic, you know, reworked. Some of them would just rock out, you know, and that environment, you know, and that venue suited everything. I'll never forget, we got Paul Mack to do one of the shows, and it was heaving. And you know who else? Stereo MCs. We got them in as well. And it went from, you know, kind of this laid-back, beanbag, chilled-out vibe to people heaving. You know? Yeah. It was amazing. Well, and then we presented the Channel 10 aired the show.
Oh, right, that's correct. So Channel 10 is a commercial channel in Australia, for those who don't know. One of the main three, really, you would say. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that was before all of the other channels became available. You know, that was, I think there was like, what, 7, 9, 10, and the ABC in Australia. Yeah.
And the all-important SBS, of course. We can't forget them. But,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, anything, look, just to go back on that heaving comment of those performances, anything Paul Mack touches turns into an outright party any day of the week. We all know that. And for those of you...
Do you know what?
Yeah.
He was amazing to work with, Ben. Amazing. What a professional, talented, extraordinary man. Just had to get that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. For those any of you who have not heard of Paul Mack before, get online and check him out. Paul Paul Mac M-A-C. I believe he's just released the new record and had a party on a train recently as well.
Oh, are you kidding? Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
I think he launched a new record on a train. I don't know if it was Sydney to Melbourne or Melbourne to Sydney in Australia, but he certainly put a gig on.
That does not surprise me. That's exactly who he is.
We might even have to try and have a chat to Paul. He's always entertaining to talk to.
Subscribe to Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider through iTunes. Follow Ben on Instagram at Industry Insider Official.
Let's move on to Warner was your last gig before you went off to do your own thing. Can you take us through that quickly?
Yeah, sure. The contract with MCM, that was a maternity contract, so I knew that was coming to an end. And again, you know, through friends of friends, I heard that one of the girls that was doing artist relations and press was leaving Warner. And she was the Victorian promotions, no, publicity and artist relations manager. So, you know, through other people, I kind of got in contact with the head of promotions and said, may I apply for the job, and did the interview, and, you know, luckily got the role, and I loved that role. And it was time for me to head back into a label, because that really was, you know, that's where my, you know, where I excel, and it's where my strong points are, and it's where I belonged. And I loved working for Warner. I did a couple of years as a Victorian promotions manager. And then I was offered a national promotions manager's role, moved to Sydney and did that for the next couple of years. And these were all, you know, I must say, these were all very strategic moves on my behalf. Since I was about 20, I've always wanted my own company. And when I first came back from London, I contemplated setting up an independent PR company, because I had been exposed to so many of them in the UK. That's pretty much, it was very much commonplace for an artist to outsource their PR. And my dad kind of was the one that gave me advice. He sort of said, you know, you need to probably dig back into Australia and do a little bit more work here. And when you launch on your own, you have to have those relationships. So my time at Warner, I maximized. Especially when I secured the national promotions role, I made the most of it. I got on a plane as often as I could, and I met as many media face-to-face around the country as I possibly could to really develop those relationships. And I worked, again, incredibly hard and long hours, because I knew that if I got this right, I would then be in a position to launch my own company. But I had a hell of a lot of fun along the way as well.
Oh, I bet you did. Sounds like Chuggy's his yearly, what does he call it, tour, where he hops on a plane and he goes around the world, and he just drops in, says hello to everyone, and shows his face and causes...
Yeah, see, it's the power of the face-to-face meeting.
Yeah,
it makes a difference.
Absolutely. So Warner came to an end, and Alpha Entertainment, when was that starting to bubble in the back of the mind?
It was starting to bubble in the back of my mind it must have been about 2012. Again, see, epiphany moments. I can remember the day at Triple M that I decided to move into a record company. I can remember the day I decided to step outside of Warner and start my own company. And it must have been about 7 months prior, and I'd been taken to a beach in southern Italy, and it's the most beautiful spot I've ever been to, ever. I love it. I felt very much at home there. In fact, I have the location of that beach tattooed onto my arm. And it was on the beach during that day that I made the decision that when I got back to Australia, I was on holiday, I was going to start planning my exit strategy and to set my own business up. And I think the time from when I made that decision to when I left Warner might have been maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's just stuff that, you know, I needed to get my head around on how to set a business up, what I was going to need. You know, you don't have an infrastructure. I don't have an IT department.
Yeah.
You know, I would need, you know, all of these different things. And I was so lucky that, you know, I've worked with so many incredible artists, and one of them being, you know, Eskimo Joe for many, many years. And they're a band that I absolutely love and always will love. And the minute I left Warner, they couldn't do it straight away, but I left, I think, on the Friday. On the Saturday, their manager phoned me and they contracted me from the Monday to take over their tour PR. So I literally stopped working at Warner. I had to, you know, try within the space of 24 hours to get my computer set up, my phone up and running.
Wow.
You know, all sorts of sort of logos and stuff like that. It was it was a scrabble, but yeah, I you know, very fortunate.
Let's get into the final part of this interview and have a chat about Alpha Entertainment. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back with Victoria, the lovely Victoria from Alpha Entertainment.
You're listening to Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider. Follow Ben on YouTube at Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider.
Victoria joining me from Alpha Entertainment. We've gone through the history as we like to do with everybody that's an initial guest on our show. Learned a lot. Very, very hardworking. And I think the other thing I'd like to point out as well, and I don't think is pointed out enough in the music business, is the gender thing. And I know for a fact that for females in the music business, it is extremely hard to just operate and to learn so much more about your history, Vic. I'm I'm extremely humbled and very impressed at the fact that you've worked so hard. And I know out there's a lot of other women like yourself in the music business that are in high positions that have probably got a very similar story.
Do you know what? It's interesting. Just on that, there's been a lot of chatter recently, and I'll probably make a lot of enemies when I say this. There's a lot of chatter about, inequality between male and female, not just within music, but within the workforce, full stop. And sometimes, I've never noticed it. I've never bought into it. And I kind of sometimes get annoyed because it's like every single person, you're responsible for your own belief kind of thing, and I don't think, in fact, in some cases, I'm pretty sure I've negotiated salaries that are probably higher than some of my male counterparts. So I don't believe in kind of moaning about it. It's like, if you want a good salary or a salary that you feel that you're worth on, learn to negotiate your salary, learn to believe in yourself. And it would be very easy, I think, to fall into the trap of going, women have to work so much harder in this industry. Women just have different skill sets. I don't feel like I've worked any harder than some of my male counterparts. And it's not an ethos I like to think about or buy into generally. Very unpopular call there from Victoria.
No, hey, that's not an unpopular, it's all about everyone having an opinion. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think sometimes though, whether you're male or female, I don't think gender is always the issue. It's like, if you want something better for yourself, then go and make it happen. Don't moan about it, because that just perpetuates it. If you think that you're being paid less than your male counterparts, then I said, learn to negotiate your salary better.
Yeah.
It's up to you. If they want you, if a company truly wants you, I can tell you right now, they will find the money every time.
Well, it's great. It's great advice from someone who's been in the biz a long time, and it's just good to have open and honest opinions when we're having these discussions. So let's get into Alpha Entertainment. You just to go back to what you said before the break, you were talking about picking up Eskimo Joe as a client, and you basically had to hightail it and get everything put together rather fast, a lot faster than you were planning on, by the sound of it.
I did. I sort of investigated what I needed to do and, sort of wrap things up at Warner and left that. But I didn't expect a client like Eskimo Joe to come on board straight away. And I was delighted. I did think I'd get a bit of a break. Like, I was sort of in my mind mentally planning that I might get sort of a month of just slowing down time. Warner had been crazy busy in the lead up to when I left. There were a lot of artists touring. I was rarely at home. I felt like I was always on planes. So, but I love that about this industry. Sometimes the best things that happen to you are those ones where you don't have time to think about it. So I left Warner, and there was no time to question the decision I'd made or freak myself out. I had to roll, and I had to roll straight away. So that was a good thing.
Yeah.
And in that first year, when you step away from a label, there's a lot of power that goes with, like, when you phone a media outlet and you're Victoria from Warner Music, they're going to take your call, because that's the way it works. And it was really great, and I loved the freedom and the challenge of not having that behind my name. I worked in the first year. I love working with independent artists. It's something I still get a kick out of, and I think it keeps you good at your game. Anyone can work a superstar artist. Like, when you're working a superstar artist, like if you're working a band like Folds or a Green Day or a Michael Bublé or any of those, media want time. It's easy. What you're doing, the hardest thing about a campaign like that is, negotiating what's running where and securing the time with the artist and maximizing the exposure. But taking a brand new baby and making somebody else fall in love with them enough to write about them, that's the stuff that I think really tests you, and it keeps you fresh at your job, and it keeps you on your toes. And I get the biggest kick still to this day when I read a story or a review or a news piece on a developing artist. that's the stuff that I really love. So the first year in Alpha, I worked with so many independent and unsigned artists, and I loved it. And I figured as well that I wanted to do, I don't take on a lot of clients at any one time because I don't think that you can work 3 or 4. Well, you know, when it was just myself, I didn't think I could work more than 3 or 4 artists at any one time and do the job properly. And it was very important to me to do the small jobs, the baby bands, incredibly well, because when you do the small jobs well, the big jobs will come. And that's pretty much been the way it's been. I still am very, very hands-on with developmental artists, and where the company is actually gearing up in the next couple of months to launch a subsidiary of Alpha, where we're going to be completely dedicated to developing artists and helping artists, develop themselves.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. I love that stuff.
For more, head to BenPitchersIndustryInsider.com. Follow Ben on Twitter @OfficialInsider.
I don't want to ask you to give us your favorite or single anything out because you have a lot of clients and you work with a lot of bands, and it would be kind of unfair to get you to do that because someone might think that they're missing out. But let me just read out some of the previous clients here. As far as festivals go, you've had Soundwave Festival, Vans Warp Festival, Harvest Festival. You've got current festivals, Beyond the Valley, which is getting huge buzz, and everyone's loving it. Sea and Beats Festival. There's a few others that we might get to learn about later on. Your independent artists, Emma Bryce, Beck Lawton, we know her. Vaudeville Smash, Jack Carty. There's Zoo Fight. You got to work with Hanson, which would have been quite an incredible opportunity. Yeah. That would have been what was that? Was that more current or nostalgia with the Hanson boys when you were touring with them?
Okay, so, I was not a Hanson fan. I was a little bit older when they started to peak. But, oh, my God, when we announced that tour, you have no idea how many fans that band have, especially in media, because there are all these lovely women that I work with across, like, national magazines and in press outlets and in radio. And they're now in their sort of late 20s or 30s and in powerful positions in media. And these are girls that grew up with pictures of these boys on their ceiling. So, they were reverting to kind of teenage behavior. They were squealing. You would secure interview time for them. And some of the emails I got from them, like, I read one to my mum and she's like, oh, my God. Like, I was really surprised and incredibly delighted with the reaction. This band is still as popular as ever. These guys still know how to write hits, and they were such a delight to work with.
Yeah.
We're so professional. They're smart, they're charming, they know exactly what they're doing, they know what they need to do, and working with an artist like that is always great.
Yeah.
Professional.
Now, this is definitely one I want to have a chat to you about. Touring with Live Nation and Nickelback. I love to take, I will always jump at the things that are most difficult because I love the challenge of it. Yeah.
And I've not been a Nickelback fan, but I appreciate exactly what they do. And again, they do it very, very well. And I think it's very easy to forget or underestimate just how big this band is. And it was such a fascinating process watching the haters come out of the woodwork. And because I worked with them and they did so many interviews for me, I ended up with a totally newfound level of respect for them. And I found it very frustrating. That band did about, I don't know, maybe 39 interviews for me to set the tour up.
Wow.
Like, that's a lot of interviews.
Absolutely.
Anything I wanted, they made time to do it for us. So immediately I was hugely respectful of their level of professionalism. What was disappointing, I found, in that campaign was that possibly out of the 39 interviews that band did, I read the same thing probably 37 times. And there were 2 outstanding journalists and interviews completed where the journalists actually thought about what they were asking and presented new things and interesting things, and they were great pieces to read. You know, I shouldn't actually say that that figure is wrong, because, you know, a lot of those interviews, the guys did a lot of radio interviews, and radio interviews are very different from press interviews. But, and I felt very protective by the end of it. And it was very difficult towards the end of that campaign leading into the tour to see some of, you know, the really obvious, you know, low, you know, picking the low fruit, you know, comments that media make about them. And I took it really personally because, you know, I had a different experience with them. And I think it's very easy to underestimate the power of these bands. And we forget where Middle Australia is. And, you know, I think everyone's got an inner bogan sometimes. You need to unleash that.
Yeah. Now, what about, I think the one interesting thing was this absurdly popular, as far as anti-Nickelback was concerned, Facebook page to try and get them to not play in Australia. What was the reaction from the guys and the Nickelback team and even yourself when that came out?
Okay, so they couldn't care less. They think that stuff is funny. They own houses in Hawaii. They don't give a shit about that stuff, you know. Yeah. And they've learned to deal with it. And the ironic thing is, you know, what makes me laugh about this is that the haters of what made that, you know, they've made this band into a superstar artist. They drive it. They keep driving it. I was horrified and lost my sense of humour completely when that came out, that Queensland Police thing. And all I could think of was, like, that is clickbait. You know, that's all it is. Yeah. And I just looked at it and went, you know, have the Queensland Police, I thought it presented the Queensland Police in a really poor light. And all I thought about was, you know, it's like, bugger it if, you know, you've actually got a real problem, because the Queensland Police are a little bit busy creating artwork for clickbait at the expense of a band. Yeah. You know, and I thought that was really shit. But like I said, I started to take it personally towards the end, because the team of people around this band and that band themselves work so friggin' hard. And you can diss them all you like, but they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who their fans are. They're incredibly smart. And the team around them were one of the most amazing teams I've worked with. Great people. Well, and nothing bad to say. There you go. I don't own a Nickelback record, though. No,
I mean, it's all a learning process. I certainly know back in my Northern Queensland days, not to denounce anybody from Northern Queensland, but yeah, I definitely listened to a bit of Nickelback, especially when I was a commercial radio announcer. So yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those things, man. It's one of those things. Okay, Vic, let's look. I said last break will be the last break, but this will be the last break. We've had so much to talk about. I want to get into your current clients and also a very exciting role that you've landed for yourself.
Subscribe to Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider through iTunes. Follow Ben on Facebook at Industry Insider Official.
Talking to Victoria, director of Alpha Entertainment in Australia, and it's been an interesting chat. We've gone from the start of your career through to moves overseas, working with record labels in the UK, coming back to Australia, continuing that momentum, and then deciding that you want to go out and start working for yourself. And Alpha Entertainment has certainly brought you some great stories already, Vic, and I'm sure it's going to bring you so many more. Now, what I want to get into is the current clients that you have, and there's some they're all special, because obviously you only take on a certain amount in order to keep that level of professional work to a standard. But you've got the current festivals you got here I want to get into first. You've got Beyond the Valley, Sea and Beats. Let's have a quick chat about those.
Look, you know, the Beyond the Valley, this is the second year I'm working with them, and, you know, it's one of the best working relationships that I've ever had. I love these guys. You know, there's 5 of them that own this festival. The eldest of them is about 25. These guys are so switched on and smart and motivated. And I feel like I'm really lucky that I'm working with the next generation of, you know, Ken West, Vivian Lees, AJ Matters, Chris O'Brien's. I really feel like in 10 years' time, this bunch of guys, they're gonna be the ones that own this space. And it's a really positive working relationship. I love the concept for the festival, you know, and the artists that they book, they know this genre of music so well. And last year, the festival was at Phillip Island. You know, the scenery is spectacular. You know, we had Peking Dark. There was a surprise that, you know, artist called Baccamat, who literally blew everyone away. The sun was setting. The ocean is behind. It's him and his saxophone player, and he nailed it. It's a beautiful environment for a festival, and you know, the guys spend a lot of time securing their lineup, and you know, they have some very cool up and coming hip hop artists. Then they have some very cool sort of indie artists, and then they have some really, really cool electronic artists. And they really focus, they're not necessarily going for big names. These guys go for the stuff that's coming through, those emerging artists that are just on the edge of starting to break into that next level. So working with them is an absolute delight. Seeing Beats is my next love and my next new baby. This is a concept. It's not a particularly new concept. It's an emerging concept, but it's a 4-day festival on a cruise ship. So, God, I love my job. You know, I do. When we got the contract for this, I was just like going, oh my God, I'm gonna work at a festival on a cruise ship off the north coast of Queensland for 4 days in March next year. I mean, how shit is that?
Yeah.
And again, you know, this is about a whole different experience. So first of all, cruising is not traditionally something that young people do, but we're starting to see a bit of a resurgence in it because they're putting festivals on it. There's one called Holy Ship, and I think they kind of started the whole idea of this. But you've got 2,000 people. It's definitely more an electronic lineup. It's really a demographic of probably 18 to 35. And, you know, everyone boards in Brisbane and then they take off. And, you know, along the way, there's a stop at a mystery island and there's a festival on the island for the day. It's going to be amazing. And that's in March next year. So we're in the process of gearing up for a second artist announce, which will come in the next couple of weeks. And then we've got a couple of big international names that we're dropping towards the back end of the year. And, you know, it's only 2,000 people on the boat. And it's the kind of environment where, you know, the artists are with the passengers, the festival goers. You know, it's a big cruise ship, Ben. It's got swimming pools, you know, and 7 floating stages. Unreal.
It sounds unreal, and if I get some time off, I think I might have to come back to Australia and get on that boat. I'll bring my Hawaiian shirt, my deck shoes, and I'll bring the Oracle to mix some cocktails for us, shall I?
That sounds absolutely perfect. And again, you know, I'm really fortunate that I'm working with an amazing team of people. The guys that the Travel Superstore own this festival. And, you know, they are so open to suggestions and ideas, and it's a really positive working experience with them. And they really want this to be a long-term proposition. And that's always exciting as well. You know, I like working on new things and, you know, where there's so much scope and so much belief. And it's a group of people that band together to work really hard to make something amazing happen. And I love being part of that. It's incredible. And we've seen... Sorry, you go.
No, please continue, please.
You know, there are so many different options. We're seeing Beats as well. It's like, you know, heading into March, if you live down south, the weather's getting a little bit cooler. And quite often, you know, that's when people sort of do a quick trip to Bali for a week, you know, and it probably costs about the same amount of money. And I love the idea of really presenting this in a different light. And that is, you know, as opposed to going to Bali for a week, oh my God, get on a cruise ship with 35 artists for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
Excellent. I just wanted to let everyone know too, if they're interested in looking up these particular festivals that we're talking about, it's cnbeats.com.au if you want to go and have a look at that. And also Beyond the Valley is beyondthevalley.com.au. So just to make sure people can keep abreast of what we're talking about and go and check those festivals out. Maybe you're outside of Australia and you want to fly in and check them out. They're pretty special. That location is special. The cruise ship sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to have to try and get back to to check a
We
couple
would
of those
love
out.
to have you back and on board, Ben.
Well,
we would love to have you on site.
Hopefully we can do it, and that's very gracious of you. Thank you very much. I know I'd love to come back and have a bit of fun with you guys. So we'll see what we can't arrange. Let's take a quick break and hop into the third and final part of our 3-part interview with Vix from Alpha Entertainment. Vix, stay right there. We'll be back shortly.
Follow Ben on Instagram at Industry Insider Official. You've been listening to Ben Pitcher's Industry Insider.